Hey everybody, it's Aaron Kasnitz here, your Baltimore Ravens beat reporter from the Patriot News and PennLive.com. We're all now, stuck at home, so we're doing some Ravens analysis, and the Ravens made two moves on Monday that I thought we should talk about for today. And both moves were kind of similar. They brought back two veteran defensive backs who've been with the team for a long time. Cornerback Jimmy Smith, their longest tenured defensive player, re-signed on a one-year contract. And then a few hours after that, the Ravens announced that they also had re-signed safety Anthony Levine, who's been a little bit more of a special teams contributor the past couple of years. Also played a big role. 2018 was his biggest role as far as playing on the defense, playing in a dime linebacker like role. So the first kind of thing to think about with these two moves is that they really provide leadership and they provide depth. And there's no doubt about that. Certainly, we got two veteran players, guys who have been in Baltimore for a combined 17 years. That's important. And then depth is kind of the second thing because, Jimmy Smith is a quality cornerback, could start for a lot of teams, but the Ravens have two all-pro outside corners already on the roster, Marcus Peters, Marlon Humphrey. Tavon Young is set to come back to play in the slot, so you won't really expect them to move around and get Jimmy onto the field that way. You think Jimmy Smith will probably end up being a little bit more of a traditional backup. Maybe they find a rotation. And the Ravens also have two starting safeties in Earl Thomas and Chuck Clark. So it's not like the Ravens re-signed Levine and Smith to be, clear-cut starters to be every down players. But it goes beyond depth, and that's kind of the point I wanted to make in this analysis here. It's not just that the Ravens now have a really good corner in case Marlon Humphrey gets hurt, or they have a little extra depth in case a safety gets hurt, something like that. Really, I think what this does is it provides flexibility for the defense in the secondary, and it provides options for defensive coordinator Don Wink Martindale. Now, the Ravens don't have Brandon Carr on the roster anymore, but you remember last year they moved Carr from inside cornerback to outside cornerback to safety, and he played safety for the first time in his career and did pretty well. That meant the Ravens could move up Chuck Clark, the starting safety, to play in that dime linebacker role, and he could cover corners, he could cover tight ends, or you could have him cover wide receivers, have him cover running backs. If you've got 6, 7, 8 defensive backs that you feel are really good, high quality players who can cover any position, all of a sudden you can really match up with any offense, and that's what the Ravens wanted. Sure, they have a starting five in place in the secondary, and that starting five, Tavon Young, Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters, Earl Thomas, Chuck Clark, those guys are going to play a ton, but when you have a guy like Jimmy Smith and you have a guy like Anthony Levine, all of a sudden you've got enough options where you can mix and match. You can play 6, 7 defensive backs on the field at a time if that warrants, if what the offense is doing warrants that. Before the Ravens re-signed these two players, they would have had to rely on really young, unproven guys, Anthony Averett, Sean Elliott, if they wanted to dig deep into the bench and to use those options. So now you got the leadership, you got the depth, but most importantly, the Ravens have options. Maybe we'll see Jimmy Smith play some at safety. Maybe we'll see the Ravens move Marlon Humphrey into the slot a little bit if they've got a matchup they want to take advantage of there. And then Jimmy Smith can play on the outside. Maybe Anthony Levine plays at dime linebacker, so Chuck Clark can play back at safety. The Ravens didn't have all these options. You couldn't be going maybe a couple hours ago or a couple days ago, but now they've got two more options, and now Don Wink Martindale, the defensive coordinator, can do pretty much whatever he wants in the secondary, and that's very valuable to the Ravens.